Hi, everyone, and welcome into today's episode of Awaken Radio. I am really excited for the conversation that we're going to be having today, and I feel really inspired about the topic that I'm going to be talking to you about. And I want to talk with you today about unraveling our addiction to achieving and unraveling our patterns of being a high achiever, an overachiever, and really basing our worth on how much we achieve. And this can be a pattern that so many of us as women can fall into, and it's one that I have really struggled with and had to navigate for many, many years, and I'm still really unraveling it. And so, what really inspired me to bring you this conversation was a reel that I posted a few days ago on Instagram. And when I posted this reel, I honestly didn't think too much of it. I thought it would perform in a similar way to all my other reels. I usually get a few thousand plays on a reel, maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000 if it does well. But this reel at this point in time has had over 160,000 plays, and it's still growing. There's still more and more people watching it and people finding it. It has had, I think, over 10,000 likes, thousands and thousands of shares and saves, and it's brought thousands of new people into my Instagram community as well. And so this reel's really blown up. I would say it's gone viral. It's gone viral for my account anyway. And I was really sitting with what is it that has made this reel blow up in this way? And I really think it was the message in the reel. And the message of this reel was really speaking to when women get caught in their masculine energy and they start to get stuck in this pattern of having to always be achieving in order to feel enough. And they start to base their worth on how much they achieve, and therefore they need to just keep doing and giving and striving and achieving more in order to feel enough. And this reel was inviting women to actually return to their feminine, where you can start to find and feel that your worth is innate. It's innate to who you are. It is not something that you earn. It is not something you have to work for. It's not something you have to achieve. It's not something that's even measured externally. It is innate, and it's measured and felt from within. And this reel was saying that when a woman can come back to her feminine and really find her innate worth, this is when she can finally start to be able to slow down and soften and rest and connect with her body and be with her emotions. And so when I was watching people share this reel or comment on this reel, I could just hear how deeply this message was resonating and how many women were really identifying with being stuck in this pattern of achievement and being stuck in this cycle of always having to do and give and work and strive in order to feel that sense of enoughness. And the reason I was saying in this reel, that this is really related to a woman being in her masculine energy is because masculine energy in its essence is so much more of an outcome-focused energy. It's really about getting the results. The masculine inside all of us is how quickly and efficiently can I get my outcome? That's really what masculine energy does. It wants to take us to our outcome, to our result, and it's very results and outcome driven. And so when we are in that pattern of primarily being focused on our results, on what we achieve, on what we do, we are operating more from our masculine energy. And in a masculine model, this is the conditioning we've picked up from society around what makes us worthy and valuable in the world. It's what we achieve, right? And so when we are actually more so in our feminine, and this is what the reel was inviting us into, we're much more focused on the journey. So the feminine is much more about the process. It's about the journey. It's not just about the outcome. The feminine within all of us wants to feel good. She wants to feel good along the way. She wants to enjoy the journey. And while the masculine says, how quickly and efficiently can I get to my outcome, the feminine says, how pleasurable and enjoyable can I make this journey? She wants the journey to feel good. And so when we're caught in this pattern of hypermasculine energy or wounded masculine energy, we'll be so focused on our outcomes and what we need to get done and what we want to achieve that we will sacrifice our well-being along the way. We will sacrifice our pleasure, our joy, our aliveness, our nourishment in order to get that outcome. And that is really when we're caught in that very almost like that addiction to achieving, that overachieving, that high achiever. And that's when it takes a toll on us. And if you want to hear me speak a little bit more about these energies, and particularly around that, wounded masculine or hypermasculine, I'd listen to my most recent episode before this one, episode 137. I really talk in there around how to heal unhealthy patterns of masculine energy. So that will really complement what we're talking about today. And what I was really saying in this reel as well is that for a woman to truly come back to her feminine, she needs to be able to start to unravel her addiction to achievement and basing her worth on her achievement. And she needs to be able to slow down enough to feel what's actually behind that pattern, what's driving that pattern for her. And she needs to be able to hold herself and be with all of the emotions and the feelings that are going to start to come up when she begins to slow down and do less. And that is a big reason why we can't slow down, do less, or stop achieving so much, is because of the discomfort that comes up, or the feelings of unworthiness, or the feelings of, I'm useless, I'm worthless in this moment, I'm not adding any value. Or I feel insignificant, I feel not enough. And we don't know how to be with those feelings, so we just keep doing more on top of them. And I do just want to say there is absolutely nothing wrong with achieving. I saw some people in the comments of this reel, I think, take it a little bit the wrong way and think that I was saying, that a woman shouldn't achieve, which is ridiculous. I am a woman who runs a business. I've run a business for 11 years. I need to be achieving, right? So I'm not anti-achieving, and I don't believe that being in your feminine means you no longer achieve, but your relationship to achieving changes. There is a difference between achieving from a space or aiming to achieve because you feel like you have to, because you feel like that is how you feel valuable and worthy in the world, and achieving from a place of always needing more because nothing is enough, and achieving from a place because you can't slow down and you can't rest and you always need to be doing. And this is when there's really unhealthy masculine energy and there's wounding that is driving our need to continue to achieve and do, right? There's a difference between that and actual achieving from your feminine, which is where you show up in devotion to what wants to be created through you. There's a difference between achieving almost to sustain your ego in the world and your identity in the world, that you are valuable and you're successful, and all the ways that you look and appear, and what people think of you because you're achieving so much, and what you think of yourself because you're achieving so much. Versus when you are achieving, and I'm using air quotes here, because you are serving and devoting to what you can feel wants to be created through you, what you are here to do and create in the world. And I don't know if you can feel the difference, but you move from a very different energy. One of them is coming from wounding and proving, right? Needing to prove. One of them's just coming from I'm fully honoring where I'm being guided to go, what I'm being guided to do, what I'm being guided to create, and how I'm being guided to use my life force, which might look like achieving, right, to people, but I'm not addicted to that or hustling for that or needing that in order to feel enough. And really what we want to do as we're journeying this is start to shift the way we measure our self-worth. Because the problem with being a high achiever, like I've been saying, is your worth is linked to what you do. And when we start to unravel this, ultimately where we want to get to is coming back to that innate worth, which is what I was talking about in the reel, this innate worth that exists inside of you, exists inside your body, is innate. You were born with it. You were born worthy. This isn't worth that you earn and have to work for and have to achieve for. It is innate to who you are. And when you truly can sink into that feeling, I believe that's when you can truly start to sink into your feminine. And that's what the reel was ultimately trying to communicate. So this journey of unraveling this part of ourselves that has been conditioned, it's really masculine conditioning that we've picked up throughout our lives. This part of ourselves that has been taught to do and achieve and excel and succeed and prove and be perfect and give and all these things. It's a real journey to unravel that part of yourself. And I've been working on unraveling this part of myself for years. And it actually really began for me in 2020. 2020 was when I was forced to really look at my inner high achiever and kind of my addiction to achievement. Up until that point, I hadn't been in a relationship. I'd been single for 6 years. I'd been running my business, living alone, and I was a workaholic. And I was fine with that. I loved my work. I loved the feeling I got from my work. I loved helping people. I loved creating. I loved teaching. I loved all of it. And I thought there was nothing wrong with the level to which I was working. And this can be the case for a lot of us when we're in this high achiever pattern. We don't even know. We don't even think there's anything that's kind of out of balance. We're just like, yeah, I love the achieving. It feels good. Like you get a rush from it for sure. But you'll know that you're too focused on the achieving and the doing when you're starting to burn out, when you're starting to become depleted and exhausted, when other areas of your life are starting to sacrifice, like your relationships. You're not getting to even spend time with people or build relationships because you're so busy with what you're doing. When you can't find time for self-care and rest, when you find you feel guilty even trying to rest because you just constantly feel like, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm not being productive, right? So that's how we know things have got like out of balance and we're pushing it a little bit too far here. But this unraveling happened for me when I got into a relationship. And so I got into a relationship, and then in 2020, my partner and I moved in together. And when we started living together, I had all of these patterns of anxiety and insomnia come up for me. And I started not sleeping. And in 2020, I was going through a whole lot of things and I was having this insomnia and I had to step away from work. Like I had no choice. I stopped posting as much on social media. I stopped working with as many one-on-one clients. I stopped doing course launches. And this whole part of me that had been so like addicted to how much I was doing and how much I was giving suddenly began to unravel. And it was incredibly uncomfortable. And what I noticed, and this is how I knew I had an addiction to achieving, is that as I had to step away from work to look after my health and look after myself, I started to feel these incredibly uncomfortable feelings. Like I would hear this voice in my head that's like, I'm not adding any value. I'm not helping anyone. I'm not doing anything. I'm not contributing anything. And I started to feel incredibly worthless. I started to feel like I had no worth or value in the world. I started to feel invisible. I started to feel insignificant. And I started to feel really shit about myself, to be honest. And that's when I began to recognize, oh my God, like my identity and my sense of worth is all tied up in my work and how much I do and how much I achieve and how much I give. And I don't even know how to find my sense of worth and value when I'm not working or outside of that. And that was my big unraveling. And since then, I've just been continuing to unravel this piece and unravel this pattern. And it's big ongoing work. But I want to give you some pieces here around how we can start to unravel from it. But ultimately, where this pattern comes from, this is really where I see women who tend to be high achievers, really focused on achieving, always doing, really academic, really intelligent. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but where they are really leaning into and overemphasizing these parts of themselves. It often comes from our relationships with our fathers, with our dad. And we spoke about this a little bit in my previous episode, 137. But often where a woman starts to get shaped and conditioned to be more in her masculine and to be more of an achiever in her life is through how she gets praised and celebrated and loved by her father. And so many women are growing up receiving praise and validation and love for what they do rather than for who they are. So we are young girls, young women, often being praised by our fathers for our intelligence, our academics, our achievements, our sporting abilities, our strength, our success, our results that we're able to get. And so rather than being deeply loved and seen and celebrated and praised for our essence, like just for who we're being, who we are, we're receiving a lot of praise and validation for what we're doing. This doesn't mean that our fathers don't love who we are. It doesn't mean that we're not also potentially receiving that love. But there's a high chance if you have a really strong achiever tendency that you received acknowledgement, attention, validation, praise from your father for this part of yourself. And so you began to lean into and become more of it. And a lot of this times this actually originates from a father wound where we already feel not enough in some way and have developed a belief system that we aren't enough. And then we begin to overcompensate through overdoing and overachieving, right? And I know for me in my relationship with my dad, he was beautiful. And if we ever have father woundings, it's never that we weren't loved. That's not what I'm saying. It's sometimes the way in which they delivered it. And the masculine can tend to deliver their love and praise and acknowledgement more through the masculine lens, which is focused more on the doing, the achieving, and the results and what you're excelling at, right? That's what, the outcomes. That's what the masculine naturally will focus on. And the masculine, our fathers may feel less able to really validate and love and celebrate us for our feminine qualities, like our tenderness and our emotions and our sensitivity and our creativity and our playfulness, right? So for me personally, I was very praised by my father for my results and my achievements. I was the oldest daughter and I was doing well at school, so he was very, very proud of me. And what I found was there was a lot of things at school and as a kid growing up that I just loved doing. I really enjoyed doing. I loved playing tennis. I loved swimming. I loved writing. I loved reading. I loved gymnastics. I loved making things, like being creative. There was just so many things I genuinely loved. But the way my dad was is when he could see that I was good at something, he felt the need to push me in it. And it felt like it wasn't enough for him for me to just enjoy it, which is the feminine. The feminine in me was just like, I just want to enjoy this. This doesn't have to become something. I just want to have fun with it. But as the masculine and as a father who saw potential in me and was proud of me and wanted to help me become, who he thought I was here to be, he would see, the potential of what I could step into in those areas. And so, I love swimming and I would go to these swimming carnivals and he would say things to me like, oh, Con, you swim. The way you swim is amazing. You swim like, and he'd mention this Olympic swimmer that he loved. At the time, it was Kieran Perkins, an Australian swimmer. And he said, you swim like Kieran Perkins, Con, and you could be in the Olympics. And I began to get this messaging that it was not enough to just enjoy what I was doing. I had to work hard. I had to push at it. I had to go find my potential in that thing. Same with writing. I love to write. And he would read these novels by these authors that he loved. He loved this author, Tim Winton. And he would read my writing when I was literally at primary school and say, Con, the way you write like Tim Winton. You could write books one day. And he would tell me I was going to be this best-selling author. So I was going to be an Olympic swimmer. I was going to be a best-selling author. You know, it was like this in every area. And while he had good intentions, I took that on to mean that the level I was performing at was not enough. It was not good enough. He wanted me to be performing higher, better. And so this developed this pattern for me of putting so much pressure on myself constantly, needing to perform, needing to be a high performer, needing to be a high achiever. And it was never enough just to enjoy something. You had to excel at that. And that became a pattern that really built my high achiever and overachiever pattern. So I'm going to give you 5 steps here. We're going to go through them to unravel from this, this high achiever pattern and really start to reconnect with your innate worth and find your worth, more through being in your feminine rather than being in your masculine all the time. So first of all, we want to look at where this pattern came from. So we need to unravel from the father wounding, the father conditioning that we received around this part of ourselves and work with our inner child. So I would invite you to reflect, where did you start to learn to overachieve? When do you first remember being really praised for what you were achieving, whether it was you excelled at sport or writing or reading or maths, or you had these particular creative maybe talents, music, performing, or where were you praised for your mind, your intelligence, your wit? Where were you praised for your strengths? Your strength, so like your masculine strength, right? Your ability to not be emotional and sensitive. So where did you start to get, and really check if some of this came from your dad, some of that messaging? And our fathers have good intentions, but it still impacts us. Where did you get some of that messaging that might have started to create this belief that you needed to achieve, that you got love when you achieved, that you felt more worthy and good enough when you achieved? That's something we want to start to reflect on. And you really want to start to go back to that relationship with your father and just notice really where you got attention from him, really what you felt made him proud of you. Often what makes our dad the proudest is what we achieve. So that's where we can really be operating from this pattern of I just want to make dad proud. You also want to look for when you first remember ever feeling as a little girl, feeling not enough. Feeling that something about you was not enough or not good enough. And often when we feel that way, what we do is we develop behaviors to compensate. We develop patterns to compensate. So we start over-functioning in other ways. We start working really hard, overdoing, overachieving, being a perfectionist in order to compensate for that deep feeling of not enoughness that is inside of us. And it's a way to almost prove to everyone. It's not that we're not enough. We don't want anyone to see that we feel that way. So we're just going to keep proving to everyone we're strong, we can achieve, we are capable, we are amazing. And we're kind of running a proving pattern. And we end up feeling like we need to do more and try harder and be perfect and achieve more to actually feel enough. And we're almost trying to do that inside of ourselves. We're almost trying to get rid of that enoughness wound, like that wound of not being enough that we're still carrying. We're trying to get rid of it through doing more. And we keep thinking if I do more, if I achieve more, then I'll feel good enough. And it's all coming from this part of ourselves that is just wanting to feel enough, but has learnt that she needs to do more in order to feel that way. So really being able to come back to our innate enoughness and worth does invite us to do some healing work around our inner child woundings, around our father wounds, around belief systems we picked up about ourselves as little girls. And we do like the reparenting and the healing work to help support that younger part of ourselves to return to the truth about her, that she is enough, and to help her find and feel that innate worth inside of her that she was born with, and unlearn and unprogram all of the limiting beliefs that say she's not enough unless she is doing XYZ or unless she's perfect, right? So I teach in Divine Femme, which you've probably heard me talking about, my 6-month program for women. We do a lot of this healing work around your inner child, around patterns of unworthiness and feeling not enough, and like conditional love that you learnt throughout your life. We work on our mother and father woundings. We do all of this work. We heal your wounded feminine and masculine. So if you're really ready to dive deeper in this work, you can check out Divine Femme at conniechapman.com/divinefemme. Go and learn more about it. Enrollments are opening really soon. In fact, when I drop this episode, we may even have pre-sale enrollments already open. So yeah, if you're ready to like start to create some shifts around this stuff, you can learn more about Divine Femme, and I'd invite you to come and be a part of that journey, because this is where we really get in and we do the root cause work, behind these patterns. All right, so the second step, so the first one is really some of that deeper father wound and inner child work. The second one is to begin, and these are things we can practice now, is to start to shift in our daily lives now from being results focused to process focused. And this means being less focused on the results we're trying to get and being more focused on how we're feeling along the way. And this invites us to get out of that hyper masculine way of being where it's just results, and doing and achieving without any awareness of how we're feeling, of whether we're actually enjoying the process, of whether we feel nourished, of what's going on for our feminine energy, right? And beginning to shift out of that. And even though you're still doing, keeping the awareness in your body, bringing awareness to your inner self, being attuned to how you're feeling and what you're needing as you're going through your process of achieving and doing. And when we shift to more of a process focus, our intention becomes to enjoy the process, to enjoy our life, to take care of ourselves along the way. I did this podcast, no, it wasn't a podcast, I did an Instagram live. It was a few months ago, I think, and it was called How to Be in Your Feminine and Still Get Shit Done. And the premise behind that is that you can still be connected to your feminine energy while you're doing. Because your feminine energy is a state of being. It's an energy you embody. It is qualities you embody. It is how, soft and open your body is. It's how connected you are to your joy and pleasure. It's how nourished you feel. It's how deeply you're meeting your needs. It's how deeply you're honoring like truly what's alive for you and what you're actually feeling in each moment. And you're taking care of that. So we want to make this shift from just being purely results focused, where it's like, I need to get to my outcome as quickly as possible. And I don't care if I suffer and I struggle and I burn out and I deplete myself and it hurts along the way and I have to hustle, which is us saying I don't care about my feminine as long as I get to my masculine outcome. But instead, we want to shift to saying, yeah, I've still got to get to my outcome because probably I've got things I've got to do. But how can I enjoy the process more and take more care of myself through the process, nourish myself through the process, and stay connected to my body and what I'm feeling as I'm doing what I'm doing? Be aware of my energy, that I'm bringing. That is the shift that we want to start to make, which takes us out of just being really masculine and obsessed with the outcome, but allows us to feel really nourished and taken care of while we're creating what we want to create. The third one is to start to find our worth in who we are, not in what we're doing. And again, this pattern keeps making us think that our worth is based on what we do. Our worth is based on how much we give. Our worth is based on how much we achieve. But if your worth, first of all, your worth is innate. But if this was ultimately about who you are as a person, what makes you a valuable friend, for example? If you're in a masculine mindset, you'll think, what makes me a valuable friend is how much I give to my friend or how much I do for her. From a feminine mindset, feminine perspective, what makes you a good friend is the energy you bring to that person, how deeply you love them, how present you are for them, how deeply you listen and are attentive and are kind and are warm and are a safe space for that person. It's who you are on the inside. It's your essence. It's your heart. It's your personality. It's your qualities. It's the energy you've cultivated that you bring to that person. And that's your feminine. Our worth is so much more about, not that our worth is even like measured or, anything like that. It is innate. But really our value, we think our value comes from what we do. Our value is like who we are as a human, as a person, as a parent. Our level of presence, our level of love, our level of care. How we make people feel. How we make people feel. Again, like I might think in my work, my value comes from how much I can do. How much money I make, how many posts I put out, how many people view my reel, whatever it is. No, my true value in my work is how I make people feel. My true value in my work is the transformation people get to experience through being in my presence. And that is all the energy I cultivate. My energy is the gift in that. My wisdom, my heart, my passion is what adds value, not just what I'm doing. Like that reel, what added value in that reel was not the fact that I put the reel up. It was the energy and the intention and the message behind it. So we have to in ourselves start to shift our worth and our value out of being so focused on what we do and achieve and on really starting to value and see the incredible human being that we are. And really work on who are we being and what state of being are we bringing, and letting that be what adds value, letting that be what makes us feel a deep sense of love for ourselves, not just what we're doing. All right, number 4 is to, and this ties on, is to love yourself even when you're not doing. Is to be able to love yourself and feel proud of yourself and feel love for yourself, even when you're not doing or achieving. For most of us as women, as high achieving women, the way that we love ourselves is incredibly conditional. So when we are achieving, when we're being really productive, we're ticking items off our to-do list, we're giving a lot, we're doing a lot, we're feeling busy, we're feeling like we're getting all the things done we want to get done, we feel proud of ourselves. We feel good about ourselves. We feel worthy. We feel valuable. We love ourselves. And we'll speak to ourselves kindly and we'll support ourselves and be like, yeah, you're amazing. But then the minute we stop achieving, we fall behind on things. We don't complete our to-do list. We go through a season of needing to rest. We go through a season of not being productive. We don't perform well. We don't get the results that we were aiming for. It completely shifts. Our love for ourselves starts to get withdrawn. We start to be hard on ourselves. We criticize ourselves. We berate ourselves. We judge ourselves. We tear ourselves down. We feel less about ourselves. We feel unworthy, right? So the whole way that we are loving ourselves is purely conditional. And as a high achieving woman, we will love ourselves more when we're achieving in all the ways we think we're supposed to, and we will withdraw love from ourselves when we think that we're not. And so what we really need to work on, if we are going to learn how to unravel from this addiction to achievement, is we have to be able to give ourselves consistent and steady love that is not based on how much we achieve, that is just based on a deep devotion to loving ourselves, where our love for ourselves is not conditional. Yeah, it's not based on how much we do, where we learn to still speak kindly to ourselves even when we're not achieving, where we learn to still celebrate ourselves, even if we haven't ticked off our to-do list, where we learn to still be proud of ourselves, even if we didn't get the results that we were aiming for. So we've got to start to intentionally practice bringing love to ourselves, bringing kindness, bringing support, celebrating ourselves, being proud of ourselves, even in those moments we're not achieving. Yeah, not taking that love away if we don't feel like we are achieving how we should be achieving in that moment. And then the fifth step is to change our measure of enoughness. The problem with being a high achieving woman is that we have a very warped measure of enough. And it's very hard for us to know when we've done enough, when we've given enough, and when what we've done is actually good enough. Because we have perfectionist tendencies really tied up in that high achieving identity. And so for a lot of the time as a high achiever, as an overachiever, nothing is ever enough. The bar needs to keep moving. You need to keep doing more and getting more and achieving more in order to feel enough. And so it's up to us to change the measure of enoughness, to change that level that we've set for ourselves where we say, I'll only be proud of you when you achieve this. And to start to practice being proud of ourselves now. To actually, it's not like lowering the bar, but to almost lower the standard of what you have to achieve in order to be enough. And actually be proud of ourselves for trying, for giving it our best, for showing up, and really bring compassion and support and love, right? And say, rather than saying, I'm only going to be proud of you when, we're going to say, I'm going to be proud of you now. It does not matter if you didn't do the to-do list. It does not matter if you didn't get something perfect. It does not matter if you didn't get those results. I'm still proud of you now. And we start intentionally practicing self-celebration, self-acknowledgement, and really giving ourselves the love that we are craving. Because all of our patterns of overachieving and higher achieving is actually like craving love. We're wanting to feel loved. We're wanting to feel enough. So we've got to stop withholding that love from ourselves and start giving it to ourselves now. And when we do all of this, we're able to start to unravel out of that intense need to always be achieving. We're able to actually start to slow down without feeling guilty. We're actually able to start doing less without feeling unworthy. And we're actually able to start doing from a place of genuine inspiration, not from proving, not from a wound, not from trying to find a way to feel enough. Yeah, so the whole way that we achieve and do totally changes. So I hope that was supportive, my love. If you watched the reel, I hope this has added a lot more depth and context to what I was trying to communicate in that reel. If you found me through that reel, welcome. I know a lot of people have found me through that. So if you're new to my community, I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy that you're listening to this episode as well, because my podcast is a great way to get to know my work and to start to get involved in what I'm doing. So if you would love to dive deeper with me, if you're ready to dive deeper, as I'd mentioned, we have enrollments opening for Divine Femme. They're either open at the moment or they're opening very soon. You'll have to check at conniechapman.com/divinefemme. If you are on the wait list, you are getting a pre-sale link a week before public enrollments open. So you're going to be getting a special discounted offer for Divine Femme. So you want to be on the wait list if you're interested. But like I was saying, this journey of Divine Femme is really going to take you on this path of being able to reconnect with your feminine energy and being able to unravel from so many of the patterns, whether it is overachieving, whether it is perfectionism, whether it is overgiving or people pleasing, or being really hard on yourself, or criticizing yourself, or lacking self-love. All of these patterns that as women that we run that diminish us and deplete us and make us small and disconnect us from our power. We're going to be unraveling all of that. Divine Femme is really about healing all of those pieces so you can come back into your feminine energy, your feminine embodiment, and also your real power as a woman, your worth, your wholeness, your magnetism, your confidence, so that you can really start to thrive in every area of your life in the way that you're truly craving. So if you're ready to dive deeper, I would love to see you in Divine Femme. You can go to conniechapman.com/divinefemme to learn more. Thank you for being here, my love. If you love this episode, please share it to your stories, tag me, share it with a friend, and pass on this message if you think it will resonate with them. If you love Awaken Radio, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And also come and leave me a review if you love this show. I would deeply appreciate to receive a review from you. Thank you so much for being tuned into this episode today, my love, and I look forward to talking to you again next time.